So I'm reading Psalm 8. The title is Divine Majesty and Human Dignity. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have found a bulwark because of your foes. Now we know where that phrase comes from.
Yes.
When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the seas. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Okay, we're going to finish 1 Samuel today. Get a start on 2 Samuel. So who wants to read 1 Samuel?
So there are any names I can't pronounce them.
No,
I know.
Verse 7. Yeah, if you could read 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 1 through 7.
Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines, and many fell on Mount Gilboa.
She already wants your name.
Just in case. So it's going in short.
The Philistines ate cheesecake. We go again. I started. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines, and many fell on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan and Anabad and it shows, I don't know how to say it, the sons of Saul. The battle pressed hard upon Saul, and the archers found him, and he was badly wounded by them. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword, thrust me through with it, so that these uncircumcised may not come and thrust me through and make a sport of me." But his armor bearer was unwilling, for he was terrified. So Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. When his armor bearer saw Saul was dead, he also fell upon his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor bearer all his men died together on the same day. When the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley and those beyond the Jordan saw that the men of Israel had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook their towns and fled, and Philistines came and occupied them.
Okay.
There was a backup at the door.
Okay, so we don't have any details of the battle.
There's some cheesecake over here if you want some.
Yeah, I just passed by it and used willpower.
Okay.
Ate a little brownie instead.
That's probably has.
He's followed you back here.
Back here.
He followed you back here, challenging your willpower.
Okay, so the major engagement of forces takes place in the Jezreel Valley to the northwest of Mount Gilboa. Somebody put up the maps back up. Can we tell where this is on the map?
Oh, sure.
Jezreel.
I brought my maps. Those maps you sent us a couple weeks ago, Susan, we should have it. Yeah.
But anyway, the point is they're on a plain. And the reason this is important because remember the Philistines have better technology. They have chariots. And the chariots can be used on the plain, but once you go up the side of the mountain, the chariots don't work so well. So the Israelites flee up the side of the mountain, but the Philistines have bows and arrows, and they just send the archers after them. So Saul's probably been shot by an archer.
Several times it sounds like.
Yeah, several times. And back then, it was the practice that a king would lead his forces into battle. So the enemy would want to get the king before they get anybody, because once you lose your leader, frequently you fall apart. So, of course, they're going after Saul, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, don't wear your crown into battle. Don't put a sign up that says here's the king. But if you want your people to follow you, I guess you have to. But then the bad side of that is that the enemy knows who you are. So if you're the king, I'm going straight for you.
A short aside from that, in the Revolutionary War, British officers wore this plate on their chest called a gadget. That's where the word gadget comes from. And so the Americans snipers were trying to get him, so they would look for the guy with they called it a gadget. And that's where they would shoot. Same kind of thing.
Right. Okay. I love knowing the history of this.
Yeah.
So after this major victory, the Philistines managed to cut the Israelite settlement in two by establishing a sedentary presence across the lower Galilee from the coastal plain to the Jordan, separating the tribes in the far north from Benjamin and Judah to the south. And so I'm wondering, because if that separation was long-standing, because isn't that how the tribes separated? Israel was the 10 tribes to the north, and Benjamin and Judah were the two at the bottom. You seen anything interesting here? Not yet. Okay. Would somebody else read 7 through 13?
Okay. I will. Okay. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley,
I'm sorry, 8.
oh, sorry,
Chapter
8,
1 Samuel 31.
31.
and it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent it to the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And when the inhabitants of Jabberwocky, Jabesh Gilead, heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. And that tree has there's a kind of a tree.
It's tamarisk.
Tamarisk tree, because that's important. The tamarisk tree is used a lot in the Bible. And I had notes on it, but I don't have everything.
The cross was made out of.
No,
Is it Jabesh Gilead?
Jabesh.
Oh, found that.
Yeah.
There it is. So it is a place. So it's on the east side of the Jordan River, and because you can see mountains right here. So this is a plain through here.
Yeah. Yeah, we finished 1 Samuel.
All this
Yeah.
language space. I'll read that part.
That's where you're supposed to share your insights from studying the book of
Yeah.
Samuel.
Your notes.
Yeah.
One commentator made the point, he said, David cut off the head of Goliath, and now the Philistines have cut off the head of Saul. Yes. So, but that was a common practice in war in those days. And it's this commentator says it's unclear whether the Philistines sent tidings of their defeat of Saul, or did they send his armor as a visible token of victory. Throughout the Mediterranean world, there was a horror about leaving a corpse unburied. So when the Israelites heard that Saul and his sons had been, just tied up on a wall, they went to get the bodies. Now think about it. They're sneaking into enemy territory to rescue the body of Saul and his sons. So it would have been very, very dangerous. Now, it says that they burned them. Cremation was not typical at that time. So this particular commentator speculates that maybe the bodies had already started to rot, because that didn't take long.
In Hawaii, when kings died, they would go off alone and into the mountains of Hawaii and die. And then that's what takes so long whenever you build a road out there, because if you run across bones, which can be anywhere,
Right.
everything has to stop. The historical
They thought
society.
the bones, the ancient Hawaiians thought the bones possessed power. So they wanted to hide them from the enemies. And so they would hide them. And yeah. Then fast forward a few hundred years, and it's like every construction project they try out there gets slowed down tremendously because there's an archaeological dig they have to follow
like
as soon
Italy.
as they break ground almost. So
Italy is the same thing.
Yeah.
And in Salem witch trials, after they hanged the witches, they just threw them out and covered them with leaves. They didn't bury them.
Oh,
And their relatives would sneak in at
It's
night
all
and get them and bury them because they wanted them in consecrated ground. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, but that was the last insult to them, is you don't get a Christian burial because you were a witch.
I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Route 10 down toward the courthouse and
Mhm.
Beach Road and Nash Road, and they extended Nash Road beyond Beach, and it comes and connects to Route 10. Well, when they started that extension, they found bones, and that delayed that construction several months.
Yeah.
And I lived in a house. If you go down Jank Road, you know where the hospital is on High Oak. If you turn left on High Oaks, it continues, and there's several houses back up in there. And I lived in one, and there was, if I stood in the bathroom and looked out, you could see wagon ruts in the woods right under the house. And there were 2 headstones on that property. And I understand we rented it. We thought about buying it, chose not to, that when they sold it, they had to do some research and make sure that either there were no descendants or get permission from the descendants to. So, yeah, it still is an issue. Talk about going off to die. I believe elephants go off to die.
Yes, they do.
And when I was 10 years old, I was in the emergency room, maybe with a broken arm. And my mother's driving me crazy. And I looked down 10. Well, now I understand why elephants go off alone to die.
Well, you
She
know,
went and sat down and left me alone.
buffalo, bison, in this was something we learned when we were in Yellowstone. When they get old and they realize, okay, I'm the weakness in the herd now, they separate themselves from the herd, so that if an animal is stalking them, they will stalk them.
Right.
So it's their way of the last gift to the herd. Is they separate themselves. Plus, the guy told us they get really grumpy, and maybe everybody makes them separate themselves, but never.
You get grumpy too if you.
Yeah, if you were the sacrifice.
Let's face it, getting the whole thing for sissies.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So I guess that works for bison and
And
elephants.
it lets everybody go.
Okay. So any other comments about First Samuel?
It's been a journey.
Yeah, it has. So Starting 2 Samuel.
My recall is that originally this was,
It was
written
all
as
one,
one-
yes, it was all,
and it just got divided for convenience sake, it seemed like.
yeah, when they,
The scroll wasn't big enough to hold
Yeah.
both of them.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Yeah.
So if somebody could read through verse 18, stop when you get to the poem,
I'll take it.
okay?
After Saul's death, David came back from his victory over the Amalekites, close enough.
Yep.
And stayed with Ziklag for 2 days. The next day, a young man arrived from Saul's camp. To show his grief, he had torn his clothes and put dirt on his head. He went to David and bowed to the ground in respect. David asked him, "Where have you come from?" "I have escaped from the Israelite camp," he answered. "Tell me what happened," David said. "Our army ran away from the battle," he replied, "and many of our men were killed. Saul and his son Jonathan were also killed." "How do you know that Saul and Jonathan are dead?" David asked him. He answered, "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and I saw that Saul was leaning on his spear, and that the chariots and cavalry of the enemy were closing in on him. Then he turned around, saw me, and called to me. I answered, 'Yes, sir.' He asked who I was, and I told him I was an Amalekite. Then he said, 'Come here and kill me. I have been badly wounded, and I'm about to die.' So I went up to him and killed him, because I knew that he would die anyway as soon as he fell. Then I took the crown from his head and the bracelet from his arm, and I have brought them to you, sir." David tore his clothes in sorrow, and all his men did the same. They grieved and mourned and fasted until evening for Saul and Jonathan and for Israel, the people of the Lord, because so many have been killed in battle. David asked the young man who had brought the news to him, "Where are you from?" He answered, "I am an Amalekite, but I live in your country." David asked him, "How is it that you dared to kill the Lord's chosen king?" Then David called one of his men and said, "Kill him." The man struck the Amalekite and mortally wounded him. And David said to the Amalekite, "You brought this on yourself. You condemned yourself when you confessed that you killed the one whom the Lord chose to be king." David sang this lament for Saul and his son Jonathan, and ordered it to be taught to the people of Judah. It is recorded in the book of Jashar.
The book of Jashar does not exist anymore.
I say I don't have that one in my
No.
Bible.
No,
Okay.
it does not.
You didn't get that?
No, that must be the Catholic version.
He
Right,
said,
What's
fell
that?
on his own sword.
yeah, how.
Yeah, so we got two
died.
different stories back to back.
Well,
Right.
one of them's lying. But
Well, and one commentator said, is the young man, several comments. It's not unusual for us to have conflicting stories in the Bible. It just
that's
happens.
true.
Or did the young man, because he knows that David and Saul had been enemies, apparently. I think maybe that was common knowledge because it had been going on.
Yeah,
for so
because he's
long.
an Amalekite
Right.
in the
Um,
Israeli army.
So maybe he's sucking up to the new king. So sort of.
It works.
No, I did.
I couldn't tell whether he escaped from the Israeli camp. So maybe he was a prisoner, or was he fighting for the
Right.
Israelis, or was he
So-
fighting for the Philistines?
All right, so I can't remember.
Because he was coming back to the Philistines.
Right, so David and
To
his going back
Ziklag.
and forth with all right, so what did he do with the Amalekites? Right, because then the Amalekites.
He was killing Amalekites right and left, and they just killed.
Yeah, and looting and
They just
Right,
looted
because
all
then
of
they took all the Amalekite booty a couple of weeks ago
Yeah.
and gave it to all his
But David did.
yeah, David did.
Right, because the Amalekites had taken his wives and.
Yeah,
they've
right.
taken all, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So yeah, David's not real crazy about them anyway.
all right.
So the young man may have hoped that by bringing the crown to the new king, he would get, that he would, David would find favor. Didn't work too well. But at this point, David, a lot of what David does, according to more than one commentator, he's thinking very politically at this point. Even though he is grieving the loss of his friend.
Something's goofy. Why wouldn't he just say, I found these with kings, with Saul, and took them, and Saul was already dead? Why did he admit to killing Saul? I don't know. That would,
Pretty well known, this is my interpretation, it's pretty well known that David and Saul, Saul had pursued David and had been,
Been trying to kill him.
the killer for years. And maybe this guy who's not privy to David's thoughts and character and all, which is David's character's kind of incurable, that he thought, oh, if I bring these to the king and tell him I killed him, maybe I'll be in good with the king and he'll give me a position in his army, his government.
If he'd waited 48 hours, it might have happened.
Yeah.
Like you said, David was,
at this point, David had not realized, I guess, that he had also been chosen to be king.
yeah. He'd been, he was anointed for years and years.
That's what I thought.
But he was,
See, if you came
But if you
every
read that
week,
one last verse,
if
it
you
says,
came every week, you know these things.
I did know that one. I was here that Tuesday.
so even though he knew that he was named to be king,
It was
you know,
taking a long.
it was taking a long time, and Saul was still the king, and so David and Saul had been anointed, and David, every time David had the opportunity to kill him, he'd said, "I'm not the one to kill who God anointed. God's anointed. Somewhat God will take care of that some other way."
Yeah.
Right, and so that's how he's responded to this guy too.
Yeah. So he says, "Hey, I didn't even kill him when I had the opportunity, and here you go and do it.
You're dead.
You're dead."
Maybe he was God's tool.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like the fact that David talked to him after he killed him.
Yeah. Okay.
You brought this on yourself. I
Right.
think
Yeah,
you can hear
exactly.
that.
Okay. Who wants to read the rest of the book? It is the rest of the chapter, sorry. 19 through 27. It is a eulogy for the fallen.
I can read it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm reading from the New English Bible, so it's going to sound different. O Prince of Israel, laid low in death, how are the men of war fallen? Tell it not in Gath, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the Philistine women rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. Hills of Gilboa, let no dew or rain fall on you, no showers on the uplands. For there the shields of the warriors lie tarnished, and the shield of Saul no longer bright with oil. The bow of Jonathan never held back. The bow of Jonathan never held back from the breast of the foeman, from the blood of the slain. Sword of Saul never returned empty to the scabbard. Delightfully and dearly loved were Saul and Jonathan. In life, in death, they were not parted. They were swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. Weep for Saul, O daughters of Israel, who clothed you in scarlet and rich embroideries, who spangled your dress with jewels of gold. How are the men of war fallen, fallen on the field? O Jonathan, laid low in death. I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. Dear and delightful you were to me. Your love for me was wonderful, surpassing the love of women. Fallen, fallen are the men of war, and their armor left on the field.
And my last verse says, how have the warriors fallen and the gear of battle was lost?
Mine says, the brave soldiers have fallen, their weapons abandoned and useless.
How have the mighty
How
fallen,
have the mighty fallen, is
and
what
the
mine
weapons
says
of
too,
war perished.
which is where we get that term, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
I looked up about Mount Gilboa, and it says that aside from the trees planted by the Jewish National fund. There is little that grows on Mount Gilboa except for arugula plants, which are kind of a weedy thing that smells like onion, but it's very, very strong, and hardy purple clove thistle. And that perhaps that's because of the cursing, who said nothing grow on your slopes and all of that. And truly, other than the trees that the Jewish National Fund planted, nothing grows wild on the Mount Gilboa in Israel.
And apparently this was a song.
Yeah.
Because he says, teach the children of Judah how to use a bow, and.
It's called the Song of the Bow.
Oh, okay. Now, what did you
It would be
think?
so not neat to be able to hear it, sung like it was,
Yeah,
back then. And as far as I can tell, I tried to find any reference at all to the music and what it sounded like then, and it doesn't,
yeah,
exist.
yeah. 3,000 years is a long time.
Like a challenge.
Give it to the Gregorians, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Ask AI. What did?
Yeah.
Don't tell me
It'll
what
give
it
you an answer whether it's right or
Well,
not.
there are
That's right.
several antiqua groups, so I'd like to explore that.
Okay, that's your homework assignment.
That's
You
right.
gotta sing it when you come back next week.
The earliest
Sing that
Christian
slowly.
There you go.
song that we do have any notes for. Somebody just, because we've talked about it in here, but it was just on Facebook recently too. Seems like it was about 200 AD or 200, 300 AD. The earliest, and there are recordings of it. I can remember playing it. But that's, I don't think we have any with the
Music of Egypt.
music or, well, in ancient Israel. I don't know about Egypt.
Most music way back was passed on oral.
Oh, yeah, right. There wasn't a need to write it down.
Even
There was,
back
yeah,
then,
Nobody could.
And it doesn't fit well with our notation either. There's a lot of less than a quarter note, less than,
Right.
there's little variations you hear to all of these music.
Quarter tones.
Yes, quarter tones.
When we were in Italy, I took some photographs. I wanted to bring them back and show them to Vicky. I never did do that, but I have photographs of some of the earliest. They're quite big on the wall, big scrolls, I guess they are.
Illuminated manuscript.
Illuminated manuscripts of monks were singing Gregorian chants. They're good.
Okay, I'm gonna reread verse 23. Tell me what you think about this. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and dear, in their life and in their death, they were not parted. They were swifter than eagles and stronger than lions. They didn't get along. So he's patching up that right there.
Yeah, sometimes change.
Hmm.
Sometimes after they die, you change the.
You change
story.
the narrative.
Yeah, because Saul was very angry at Jonathan because Jonathan had chosen David over Saul. So, yeah, he just like rushed over that there.
Well, there's a thing. At funerals, everybody's just a wonderful person.
Yeah.
All the great things they've done. We omit some of the things that Bernie's done.
And everybody's happy. Eventually,
Yeah.
that's like the old question, what's the difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish wake? One less drunk. Anyway, enough said.
All right, so I looked up the oldest Jewish song. And as far as notations, what it came up with is there's well, not specifically Jewish, there is a 3,400-year-old Babylonian cuneiform tablet That's the oldest known substantially complete work of notated music in the world.
Wow.
Wow.
It's from Babylon 3,400 years ago.
It would be interesting with following this localization of their stories and music. I'm thinking the Hasidic Jews,
Uh-huh.
maybe because they're so, whatever you call it, pure or whatever. Maybe the rabbis in that version of Judaism, they still sing some of this stuff.
Well, it says the chanting of the Bible is considered the earliest form of Jewish music with roots in the temple era. So I guess that, I would guess that chanting of the Bible as a Talmud, has come through.
I'm always fascinated. I don't know anything about it, but when I hear chanting like that, it's like they linger on a word and it goes all up and down. That must have some meaning.
Yeah.
I guess it's like there are certain languages. I think even in Italy, if you say something with a certain inflection, it means something entirely different.
Yeah.
When I was in Laos living with that tribe, they ate monkey, rat, and snake. So I decided before I went that I was going to just eat vegetables and rice. And so every time they would offer me monkey, I would say, no, kai, and I would go up. And they would always laugh. And I thought, they just think it's funny. I don't want to eat monkey. And so finally, this itinerant doctor would come up to the village about every month and just check things. And so we were sitting down for a meal and they offered me a piece of snake. And I went, no, kai. And everybody laughed. And the doctor looked at me and said, why are you telling them you're a frog? I said, no, I'm a vegetarian. No, this is kai. So it was a downward sound, not an upward sound. So I've been telling them, it was a frog. They just didn't understand why that meant I couldn't eat meat. So there are still languages where it's the tone.
Yeah.
And already flies.
I know, just expected already flies.
The animals, dolphins, they have languages that we still haven't figured out,
Yeah.
but they're obviously intelligent creatures, communicating with each other.
Except we can't even language we can't even hear.
Right.
Yeah, I've read several times in the last few years that octopus are very, very intelligent.
Well, I speak a low level cat.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In our house, the secret language is shaking the lead, which means it's time to go out and then eat.
All we have to do is open the door to the pantry and look back and nap time.
Well, so Sarah, you still have that automatic food dropper or whatever.
Yeah.
And the cats know, they can hear the click.
Yeah, it rotates until it hums a little. And one cat has it that opens up 4 times a day, and the other cat can feed when he wants. He has a thing on his neck that opens his up.
Wow.
But we have figured it out because he won't eat it all at one time. She will. So we're feeding them differently because they've got different food. But if he walks away from his and she's there to step on it, her weight will keep it open and she can finish his food. And if he hears hers and gets to it, so I figured they end up, it averages out. They both get both food. Yeah. They both look healthy, but the doctor has them on, the vet has them on diets, and they've lost several pounds since we adopted them. But anyway, I need to be out of here and I want to read 4 more.
Where's your vet? I need to go see him.
But we measure out their food very carefully. Okay, I don't know why they started chapter 2 where they do, because the story doesn't finish for another 3.5 verses. So let me read next little bit. And it happened afterward that David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up into one of the towns of Judah? And the Lord said to him, go up. And David said, where shall I go up? And he said to Hebron, and David went up there and his 2 wives as well, Ahinoam, the Jezreelite, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal, the Carmelite. We remember her.
Yes.
And his men who were with him, David brought up, each man in his household, and they settled in Hebron. And the men of Judah came and anointed David there as king over the house of Judah. And David had been a little concerned. That's why he's going to God saying, what do I do? Where do I go? He was a little concerned that maybe his relatives might not be real happy with him. But they were happy to see him and anointed him king. So at this point, he is king of just the tribe of Judah. And at the same time, I'm probably getting a little bit ahead. Remember Abner, who was Saul's cousin? He has taken a surviving son of Saul and has anointed him king of, he got a bunch of people. He didn't talk about particular tribes, but he's been anointed king elsewhere. So David's already in a civil war situation.
Thankfully for David, the Lord had already anointed him, so that gives us a glimpse for the end of the story.
Yeah.
Abner was married to Daisy May.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they lived in,
That's where the labs.
Correct.
yeah, Gladys Kravitz.
Yeah, okay. So since I have to leave, so whoever's teaching next week, you're starting with verse 4B.